So as we venture deeper into Unity, let's talk about navigating within the scene and building a more complete environment. Personally, I like to use a lot of the tools within Unity to prototype some ideas. Obviously, with the time of this class, we're not going to have enough time to build every single asset ourselves, right? You're not going to have time to build a ground texture and, buildings and things like that. So I just like to use Unity's prefabs to kind of generate just a quick layout of what I like. I'm going to go ahead and just delete the cube that we're currently on, and I'm going to make a new cube. And we've been looking at this inspector over here where we can type in some values. So with the scale values, I can scale it along the X and the Z. Let's say 10 units and 10 units. So that will make a pretty nice sized ground plane for us. I'm just going to move that down a little bit. Kind of see where my character's at. Okay, and I'm going to just duplicate this object. Now I can do that by just hitting Command D. And whenever I hit Command D, it's going to make a duplicate directly on top of the other object. I can start to snap these together. It can get a little complicated if I try to do this just with my eye by holding down the V key on my keyboard. So it's vertex snap, and what's happening is my mouse, I'm just moving my mouse, I'm not clicking anything, is snapping to different vertices on this model. So it's snapping to the corner vertex, and if I click and then drag, it snaps it to the next nearest vertex. So I can create really quite easily, I can start generating a lot of content. So I can just hit Command D to make another new set, and I'll hold down V and snap that over here. Let's say I wanted to turn these into stairs. I could hold down V, snap this up here, and I can really easily start creating a much more dynamic scene. Let's say I create a new cube. I'm going to create a wall here. And with this cube, I'm going to go 10 high and 10 wide. And I'll just hit that V key again and snap that right here. So I'm just making a quick layout. Hit Command D and hold down V and snap the same piece right there. So what I can do is start creating my world using these kind of modular units. Let's say that this is a unit that we're going to be using again and again and again. It might be best if I prefab these units together so that I have something I can just pull out and use over and over again. So let's grab these four. Let's say I want to prefab all four of these. So I want to kind of group all four of these together and have them operate together. So I'm going to be making a bunch of stairs, and that's the fastest way to do it. So just like how our object here is a prefab, and our FPS controller is a prefab. We talked about this in a previous video. It has a blue icon, meaning it's a prefab. We can generate our own prefabs very, very easily. I'm going to start by creating an empty game object. So I'm just going to hit create and just create an empty. And I'll give it a name like stairs. Okay, then I'm going to grab all of my cubes that I want to nest down into that object, and I'll just click and drag them and drop them under stairs. So we did this in a previous video as well, but now we have a stairs object that we can move around that contains each of those individual pieces. So to prefab these, this is very simple. All I do is I click and drag the game object down into my assets. So where before we dragged from the assets up into the hierarchy, I'm dragging from the hierarchy down into the assets, and I release. And now it's created a stairs prefab, and you'll notice that it changes to blue, meaning it's now actively participating as a prefab. So this means I can now drag this into my scene and create multiple copies of this very, very, very easily. Can start generating some really cool content and just rapidly prototyping some ideas I have. It's very, very common whenever you look at a full AAA game that they'll have thousands of prefabs. So they'll have built up oh, I really like the look of this. And they'll just save it down here so that it operates. It's kind of like a preset that you can pull back into the screen. I'm going to make a folder, in fact, and I'm going to call that folder prefabs. And I'm going to just drop my stairs into that folder. Now, what's really great about working with prefabs, and again, I highly recommend it, is that I can still edit this. I can still come in here and, move this piece. I'm just double clicking to select it and then moving this piece. So I can still just keep editing these things without affecting my initial prefab that I built. And maybe I like this enough that I want to turn this into a new prefab. I'll just drag that down here and I'll say create a prefab variant or a new original prefab. Because this was already a prefab, I can say prefab variant and it'll call it stairs 1 variant. So you can start creating variations, and the variation will have this little kind of branching arrows icon on it. Variations of your existing prefabs. Now this is just a really cool function because we can start to create all these sort of interconnected, dependent resources in our scene.